Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to this week's edition of Imperial as One's Belonging series, where we explore the lived experiences of individuals from the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities. Individuals who have shared their stories, shared how they have been made to feel in their pursuit to understand their own identities and their sense of belonging. And I say this every week, and I always say this, I haven't yet been proved wrong. We've got a really special guest with us today, and that is Analia. I've said her name wrong. Uh, Alalea Kia. And she is um, a research, she's an advanced research fellow in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at Imperial College. And so Alalea, I'd like to just say a big welcome and thank you for joining us and being our guest this week. And I'm going to kick off by asking the question, can you tell me what it was or what it is that gave you your sense of identity and gave you your sense of belonging when you were growing up?
Thank you very much for inviting me, Wayne. First of all, I want to thank you for passing on this invitation to me. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to be here. Um, Sense of belonging is a very difficult question. From the time that you're born, your sense of belonging starts with your family, and then you start going to school, interacting with different people at your age. So I suppose
Mhm.
then your sense of belonging comes from the school, and then all the way to, for me, when I went to university, and now that I do research. But my true sense of belonging came from the time that I started doing civil engineering and doing
Mhm.
the thing that I was so passionate about. So, um, usually, typically, even in this day and age, women are not encouraged so much to do engineering. Even myself, from my family, I was encouraged to do law or um, follow the path into medicine, but not necessarily engineering is not the first topic that comes into mind
Mhm.
for women in particular. But I always loved engineering so much from my childhood. I suppose I loved maths and physics. I loved buildings, bridges, and the way they were made up. So I was very passionate to go and study that. And at the time that I was at university, I felt that I really belonged there. I've been solving problems, working in groups, trying to design different elements of infrastructure felt like natural to me. I really enjoyed it. And then I decided to go into research. And the research that I do now, I really enjoy
Mhm.
because I love theoretical research and have a lot of respect for theoretical research. But I always loved research that addresses global challenges and provides a solution for the society and the environment. And being able to have a research team now with myself to be working on a challenge that can address some of the issues that the society is facing, it's really giving me that sense of identity and that sense of belonging.
Okay, so you mentioned a lot in those few sentences there. That first 3 minutes, we could almost end the show now, but we want to unpack it a little bit, right? You mentioned about growing up with your family and them giving you that initial sense of belonging. In terms of, have you got siblings? Are you the youngest, the oldest? Was there a pecking order? How did they help to develop your sense of identity?
Yeah, I do have a sibling and I am the youngest. I suppose my mom is very supportive
Mhm.
and particularly supportive of making sure that women achieve what they are meant to achieve within the
Mhm.
society. So she has always been very encouraging of us and our education and doing what we want to do. So at the start, I mentioned that there is this tradition or expectation
Mhm.
of particularly from myself to go and do something to do with medicine or law.
Mhm.
But although she would have probably liked me to do one of those, it's just because it's more traditional or maybe it's more what she has seen or she's used to. From the
Mhm.
time that I said I want to do engineering, she was very supportive. She's never stopped me. And to this
Mhm.
date, she's always incredibly supportive. And um, she changed her life so much and sacrificed so much to ensure that we all achieve what we want to achieve and become what we want to become. So she has given me a lot of support, which I'm very fortunate to have.
Mhm.
And um, I suppose that is a huge part of where my sense of belonging came from, because she's always told me that I should believe in myself, even at school or within this environment. I've always been someone that speaks up my
Mhm.
thoughts and my ideas, and there are certain environments that people would like to suppress that, particularly if you are a woman. They
Mhm.
don't necessarily want you to express your ideas. And she's
Mhm.
always told me not to be afraid, and to
Mhm.
make sure that you always talk about your ideas, you always talk about your viewpoints, because this is how you will be successful and how people
Mhm.
will hear you. Never feel afraid just because you are a woman within a field that is heavily male dominated, that you should suppress those and not feel that you belong to the same environment that they belong to. So I suppose that gave me a lot of courage and confidence.
So that it sounds like your mum's a really inspirational character. She's really nurtured you and given you a voice, given you a platform to express yourself. Yeah. So
Yes, certainly.
yeah. So still going up, because when you think about it, as you said, in a male dominated environments, like at school, like so you said you really enjoyed maths and physics, right? So what were your classes like in maths and physics? Was it a good mix, or were you the only girl or only young lady in your physics class? What was it like for you, and how did you make sure your voice was heard?
Um, it was certainly very male dominated. So when I did my A levels, I did maths and further maths, and in the further maths class, I was the only woman. So it does become, especially for children at that age, it is very difficult for them to accept that, and there is an element of, maybe mocking is not the right word, joking
Mhm.
around and say, no, you are
Mhm.
a woman, do you belong here?
Mhm.
It was difficult at the start. And I suppose for me, I'm a character that has a lot of perseverance and resilience.
Mhm.
So I wasn't affected at all by that. Typically, that is what encourages me to want to do even better.
Mhm.
Just to prove, I always have the sense of, if someone is telling me that it's not possible for women to do something, I always want to almost prove that we can do it. We can do even
Mhm.
more. We can achieve even more. So I suppose to some extent I was lucky to have them around, because they
Mhm.
gave me the more of a sense of, you can do this. You
Mhm.
need to do this to you owe this to the other
Mhm.
women within the
Mhm.
society, to be doing what you are doing and to achieve what you need to achieve in order to showcase that there can be women in civil engineering, there can
Mhm.
be women doing great work
Mhm.
that has real benefit to the society. And
So
then, yeah,
no, go on, go on, go on,
no,
go
no.
on.
And then again, the same thing within the university. The
Mhm.
subjects were heavily male dominated, and even
Mhm.
now within the department that I am in,
Mhm.
it is heavily male dominated, and it is always this sense of, you need to show almost that you can do it and you can achieve
Mhm.
what you want to achieve.
Okay. Just before we go on to again, the male dominant, were there any kind of like, other than your mum, right? Were there any other figures in your life who kind of like were always giving you that encouragement, or who you could look up to and say, you know what, that person always gives me good advice, or they always encourage me to do the best? Did you have anyone in your life who did that for you?
I've come across a lot of fantastic people during the time that I was at university, and
Mhm.
even now there are a lot
Mhm.
of. I have a very nice supportive network that give me a lot of advice and mentor me. And also, when I was at a school, I had a maths teacher that he was always encouraging me, and he was always telling me that, you can do. I can see that one day you will achieve what you want to achieve, and you should believe in yourself, and you should continue. So I have been fortunate in that sense to have always within my career have people that always give me good advice and are supportive, whether they are male or female.
Mhm.
So in that sense, I have been very fortunate.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's good to know, because I think sometimes not seeing other people who could, or not having people who can help you navigate an unknown system can be really detrimental, because you just don't know, well, how do I get to where I need to get to, you know? And so if you've had that support along the way, that's excellent. Um, I'm still trying to understand though. I'm still trying to understand why civil engineering. Because if you're good at maths and you're good at physics, there's so many options available to you. Why civil engineering as opposed to something else?
Um, I mean, maths and physics, as I said, were the two subjects that I really enjoyed. And I always loved the problem solving elements of engineering.
Mhm.
So then when it came to choosing a subject at university, excuse me, I knew that I want to do something with engineering, whether it's mechanical, aeronautics, civil engineering. And the reason why I chose civil engineering was because from my childhood, I was very fascinated by buildings and infrastructure. Like I would go around and look at bridges and different buildings and try and understand why they're made in a certain way. What was the designer or the architect or the engineer was thinking about at the time that they were designing this. And I suppose that was what made me passionate to do civil engineering. And I'm a very hands-on person. Even now, I have a number of fantastic researchers that work with me. I go into the lab and just help them cast concrete and make different specimens that need to be tested. So I suppose it was also that element of civil engineering that I liked, that there is a structure that you can go and construct on sites, and you can look at what these amazing engineers are doing and how they are making certain decisions. I suppose this is the reason why I was fascinated by it and wanted to do it.
So it was a combination of the mental challenge of solving the problem, but you also wanted to get that physical challenge as well of let's get it made as well. So it's not just think about it, it's do it. Yeah. So you're a hands-on, let's get this done kind of person. So you kind of mentioned there about your area of research that you're interested in, because civil engineering, there's so many different areas. So can you give us a little bit of a insight of your particular area of civil engineering and the potential um implications, benefits that it could give to everybody else?
Sure, certainly. So I work in an area which we call concrete technology. So my research is heavily based on use of concrete as a material. And within my research, I've developed a new type of infrastructure material that absorbs rainwater. So as we've seen around the world, we've had a lot of devastating flooding incidents, and they're all coming as a result of the negative impact of climate change and the extreme
Mm.
weather. So the idea is to change our infrastructure such that they can handle and cope with the impact of climate change and what we're going to be foreseeing going forward. And this type of permeable infrastructure allows water to be absorbed, and it transfers that water into the ground. So it recharges the groundwater table, and it combats against drought as well as flooding. It reduces the urban heat island effect, and it's also a very sustainable material. So it's also helps the UK and the world to achieve its net zero target.
So I'm gonna ask you just to unpack a little bit, because when I'm thinking of this, right, I remember the first time when we discussed it, because it's a fascinating way in which you've designed these pavements and things like that. And I always thought to myself as I was looking at it, how does it maintain the strength? What's the calculations which you've had to do to ensure that it maintains the strength? Because I know that when I'm walking down the road and I see a pavement stone with a hole in it, that paving stone's not very strong. But you've got so how do you maintain that strength and the all of the properties that we associate with paving, but yet have these kind of like environmental benefits at the same time?
It was certainly a difficult challenge because, as you said, the two properties are completely opposite of one another. So you have a pavement that has a lot of holes, which is known to be weak. When something has holes,
Mhm.
you always associate it to be weak. But you need that to allow the kind of drainage element for the water to flow through. But then you also need to achieve a high strength so that this paving infrastructure could be used for highways or airports. So there has been a lot of calculations into the use of the structure such that it would benefit its strength. So how can we put what density do these holes have to have, what diameter, what spacing, such that it won't actually affect the strength so much, in combination with using a high strength material that can also benefit the structure of this paving element. So it has been a lot of research and calculation done into how we can achieve both of the aspects, and have something that is also viable and it can be delivered on site and is cheap and it can be used by the construction sector.
So how far along this journey are you? Where have you had it installed? What exactly, where are we with it? If we were to, where could we see it is another question I'd say.
So we had so the technology has been developed within the laboratory completely. We've done all of the necessary tests that we needed to do in order to roll
Mhm,
it out on site. We had a field site for the past 3 years at the Imperial's White City campus. So for
mhm,
3 years, we had a field site where we were exposing them to vehicular loading and
mhm.
testing it when it's exposed to real environment. And it has showed a fantastic performance, which we were very happy with. And now we are at the point of talking to a number of individuals from the industry and trying to use it for the urban environment, from pedestrian footpaths to cycleways to car parks to then roads and also airports.
So what I'm just thinking about it, going back to this strength thing. I can understand them on paving stones, but there still probably is a weight kind of limit that you can't exceed. So it would be good for paving, but not necessarily good for road surfaces, or where would you say the limit would be? I'm just wondering.
Well, at the moment, the only limitation that we have is the risk awareness of the construction sector. So there is no
Okay.
limitation in terms of the weight. So we can achieve, so we have so many different designs for so many different applications. So it
Hmm.
can even be used for highways and airports. It's just when it comes to the construction sector, they are very risk averse and they
Mm.
is a huge liability for them to test out an innovative product that
Hmm.
it has not been used for a very long time.
Hmm.
Similar to the actual profession itself, which is very traditional, unfortunately, the mindset to some extent is very traditional. They want to use something that has been used for a number of years. So everyone has seen asphalt paving, so that has been used for hundreds of years. Let's just use that. It's just easier.
Hmm.
Um, Fortunately, with this push towards net zero, now all of the contractors and the industry is looking more into trying to use innovative technologies. So
Hmm.
that's kind of our time now to
Hmm.
change that mindset and say that, okay, if you give us a field site, it doesn't have to be large, it doesn't have to be the riskiest site. We can showcase that it can be used, and then once it's proved to you, then we can use it in more risky environments. So
It's
that is the stage we are at the
yeah.
moment.
It's interesting you should say that using asphalt, on road surfaces, because I know that every day when I'm driving my car, there's potholes everywhere. There's potholes everywhere. So although I suppose part of it is that it's quick and easy to repair, even though the government, and I'm not going political now, but even though the roads don't seem to be repaired as quickly as we'd like to. Whereas what you're suggesting in your technology, which you've designed, is that this is something which is strong enough, durable enough to be able to withstand, and actually then it will, I would suspect it would reduce the amount of manufacture and the composite materials which you'd have to be using because you're constantly having to repair, etc. Yeah. So
Certainly.
yeah, there's lots of sustainability benefits to um, this type of technology. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. We always say that you need to think of the whole life aspect of a
Mhm,
material that you use. For example, when it comes to asphalt surfaces, typically their service life is
mhm,
about 7 to 10 years. So every
mhm,
7 to 10 years, they have to be replaced. As you mentioned, the potholes appear even much sooner than
mhm,
that. Whereas when the material that we have developed, because the base is a cementitious material, a concrete
mhm,
material, it is much more durable. And the fact that it absorbs the water, that potentially when it stays on top of the surface of the typical asphalt surface is damaging, when we are getting rid of that, that
mhm,
means that increases the service life further. So the typical concrete infrastructure, you have a service life of 40 years. And with the technology that we have developed, we always say that's the minimum kind of service
mhm,
life you can achieve. And we expect it to be even higher. So in the lifetime of this technology, you would have been replacing asphalt surfaces 4 times, and that is not
mhm.
environmentally friendly, and it's not economically friendly either.
So I'm just thinking about how do you, one of the problems which you mentioned was about the fact that the reticency of um, and the risk aversion of the industry. How do you go about changing that mindset? How do you go about what are you doing to go about getting people to recognize the value of the product that you've got?
It is very difficult. I mean, we've been trying to do this for the past number of years in the sense
Mhm,
of trying to change that mindset.
mhm,
The only way that the best way we have achieved in terms of getting closer to our goal is by doing the research and proving it with the research that this is
mhm,
something that is not risky and you shouldn't worry about. So every time you are asked a question that we can't answer, we go and do more research on it. So
mhm,
and show it to them with data.
mhm,
But then also there is that difficulty that you can do so much research in the laboratory, but then the condition on site could be different. So this is the bit that we are trying to convince the individuals within industry that I always call it as a chicken and egg situation. Like people are asking us for, but have you done any trials for us to use it on our site? Then the answer is no. But we need to have that trial apart from the White City site that I mentioned. But we need
mhm,
to have these people, individuals need to trust us and the data that we have developed so that we can then trial the technology on site, gather data, and then later on be able to show to um, other more kind of risky environments, let's say like highways and airports, that we've tried it in all of these different environments for a number of
mhm,
years and it has worked perfectly. So why don't you give it a try?
mhm,
Um, so that situation is a bit difficult. And I suppose it's all about networking, knowing people in industry, presenting a number of times, trying to almost sell the technology to them
mhm,
and
mhm.
highlight the benefits of it.
So within, because I'm just thinking within academia, and you're saying going and presenting your data and presenting, how has that been received when you've done your kind of like gone to conferences, etc.? Have you felt people are listening to you, or are they? How? Tell me how it's been for you when you've been in those situations.
Um, I mean, we got a lot of interest, which has been quite good to see. So there are always two sides to the coin, I suppose. So there are individuals that are essentially competing with us. Let's say people that are doing research or even are selling asphalt products and other concrete products that
Mhm,
are, of course, not happy. And we even in the past had offers from those companies to kind of almost buy out the idea, so to kill it, so that then they won't be in competition with it.
yeah.
But with that, we now see quite a bit of shift with this idea of net zero and sustainability, and also the effect of climate change. As to, we see more and more people being interested in the technology where we present. So wherever my experience has been wherever I go and I present, I get quite a large audience and a lot of very interesting questions that give us also more avenues to do research on the technology and improve it even
Mhm,
further. But the problem is that there is a huge amount of interest and a number of people wanting to see this technology around the world. But we need one individual that is brave enough to take the risk to let us trial it at that larger scale, a
yeah.
risky scale, and then being able to then take it forward from there.
Yeah. So it's more of the it's you've got your little field site, but you need that field site to expand. You need a bigger project which can be can be almost like your showroom to the world, yeah, to say,
Yeah,
this is what I've been talking about, this is what we can do. Come and see how it's working, you know.
yeah.
Wow, 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 wow. It, as I said, when I saw it in action, I was amazed, right? I really was amazed. And I think it's that out of the box kind of thinking, which is what's really necessary going forward. What's your team like in terms of I'm just wanting to understand how you guys came up with the ideas, how you then made that idea into a reality.
So the idea came out of my PhD. So during my
Hmm.
PhD, when I started my PhD, I always wanted to work on more sustainable concrete. As I said, during my undergraduate studies, I really enjoyed concrete as a material. Is one of the most widely used construction materials, and I knew that I want to do something with concrete. And when I started my PhD, we had we have seen the devastating impacts of flooding around the world, and that really affected me. As I said, from the early age, I always felt that I want to do something to change the world. It was very naive of me. I'm a very small element in terms of the research that I do and the impact it may have on the world. But you always, as a child, have those big ideas of changing the world. So when I saw that there is this avenue of research that I can do something and contribute to the kind of academic world and also to the industry, I decided to work on this field of permeable pavements. And in the first number of years of my research of my PhD, I realized that whilst these pavements have a lot of benefits, there are a number of significant challenges to do with them, that it's stopping their widespread adoption. But then at the moment, there are so many researchers that are still trying to enhance the kind of maintenance system of those technologies. But having attended conferences and talked to industry, I realized that the industry doesn't really want to spend money for maintenance. They want something that it works from day one until they need to remove it. So I soon realized that that is not the way to go, and I have to come up with something completely new that would not have these challenges. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be able to convince the industry to kind of buy this technology or be interested in this technology. So that's where this idea of this paving technology that we call it Kiacrete has come from, and I've spent years of 7 years of doing research on it, changing its density, to understanding its strength, its drainage, its thermal durability properties. And then when I secured my own funding, I was able to hire a research team that are now working with me on this to enhance its properties further, and making sure that all of the different aspects that are still there, questions and challenges that we need to address, are addressed. So now we're working together for the common theme of making sure that our infrastructure is ready for the devastating impacts of the climate change and the extreme weather in the future.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm just thinking about it from the perspective of buildings, because it sounds like the majority of what you're doing is primarily for pavings. Yeah. Is there any possibility of moving from pavings into other construction? I don't know. I'm showing my naivety now, but I'm just wondering, is there any possibility of it being in other types of buildings, the strength element with the concrete, so that we get it a bit more sustainable? I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. There are certain elements of the building that could benefit from this as well in different
Mhm,
aspects. And this is what we are currently doing research on as well, from
mhm,
walls within the building to ceilings and kind of facades of
mhm,
the buildings as well. And this is where we are extending the research to, because as I mentioned, so there is this aspect of this new material that we have developed, but also I work across the Faculty of Engineering with also different buildings and different materials, and how
mhm,
those materials could be incorporated within
mhm,
concrete or within
mhm.
cementitious materials. And again, that part of research is also very beneficial to buildings. So yeah, I mean, the primary focus was supposed to be infrastructure and pavements and roads and airports, but now that is being extended to buildings as well.
That's fantastic. So I suppose we'll couple of more questions. If anyone else has any questions, then please put your hand up or put it in the chat and we'll come to them. But I'm just thinking as well, being a woman in this field, right? I don't want to go down this road, but being a woman, you will have faced challenges which you had mentioned. What has been your support mechanism to help you to navigate? Or have you not faced any challenge?
No, I have faced a lot of challenges. I have certainly faced a lot of challenges, maybe even
Mhm,
more than one would expect.
mhm,
It is a very difficult discipline to navigate through. As
mhm,
I said, engineering in general is heavily male dominated, and civil
mhm,
engineering is a classic field that is
mhm,
male dominated. And on a day-to-day basis, there has been individuals that are unpleasant and you don't want to interact with, and there are individuals that are very pleasant. I suppose my coping mechanism is by resilience, and not almost not paying attention to those individuals that are trying to demoralize you or trying to make you feel as if you don't belong there.
mhm, mhm,
Um, Trying to kind of always, I mean, coping is not the right word, because I've within myself, I always try and be very resilient and try and almost not pay attention to what these individuals say. And that has been my way of trying to navigate through that. And I really care about the future generation, because I have faced a lot of challenges, a lot of difficulties, and during my time in this field. And I really don't want someone in the future to be facing that, because not everyone may have that resilience. Some people may just see this challenge and they may say, okay, actually, this doesn't seem to be something I want to be facing with on a day-to-day basis, and leave. So one of the things that I do as part of my role at Imperial, I run a lot of outreach activities for the next generation, to inspire them, to show them that it is possible to be a woman and be in engineering and have that perseverance and be happy. And I had a number of students later on that have come to our undergraduate program, and that they approached me and they said it was actually because of that lecture that you gave that we decided to come into engineering and civil engineering. And that makes me incredibly happy, because I really want to see more women in engineering, particularly civil engineering. And I really do not tolerate people wanting to exclude us in a way from this field. So I have, even during my PhD time, I faced a number of challenges and a lot of difficulties. And I didn't particularly have perhaps the support network that could have helped me navigate through that. But now I make sure that I am that support network to some extent for my students and for my research staff. So I always tell them from day one that I meet them, especially if they're women, there are going to be certain challenges. You're going to come across challenging individuals, but don't think that you need to take it. You can speak up, you can come and tell me, and we don't tolerate it here. And I really want to make sure that you're happy here. This is an environment that you belong, as well as other people. So I suppose for me, initially, I give people the benefit of the doubt. I initially try and say that they didn't mean this. Let's try it again. But when it gets to the point that you think that no, these individuals are knowingly doing something, then that's the point that I try and speak up and defend my team or myself or anyone else that I feel is just not being welcomed, just because they're of a different color, or they are a woman, or any other reason that people may not like them to be there.
Right. I see a question. Thank you for that answer. Clarissa, I'm just seeing, would you like to read or say your point, Clarissa? Or should I read it out for you? Let me just pull it up. It says go ahead.
Got great coverage at the moment. Oh yeah, perfect. Hello guys, thank you very much. I wanted to say that the topic really resonates. I myself, woman of color, studied engineering, went Imperial as a postgrad, and recently have been looking ironically into SUDS, so the whole sustainable drainage paving. But I'd only heard part of your podcast, this interview, and I would love the opportunity to have a conversation, if possible, to see if there are any opportunities to be involved in any projects, because this is an area that is obviously on the up, but being a woman, there is a bit of a boys' club. Sometimes it can feel like, and it's not as easy to find opportunities to discuss these things with similar-minded people who have a passion in that industry. And the alumni group is great. There's a lot of people who come from a legal and a business background, not so much from built environment. So I'm finding a lot of value in this particular podcast. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sorry, Wayne, go ahead.
No, carry on.
I keep cutting you. Thank you so much, Clarissa. It's an honor to hear these nice words from you. Of course, for sure. I mean, definitely, please reach out. I would love to have a conversation with you. And we have so many opportunities within the research group. And if that is something of interest to you, I would be so happy to see you within our team and working with us. If you even look at my research group, most of my research group are women, and it's not because I'm doing positive discrimination by any means. It's just because I feel women are really underrepresented within this society of civil engineers and engineers in general. And I am really trying to encourage and change that mindset, because I feel that as women, we are great problem solvers, and I don't see why we shouldn't be within this space. And I would be more than happy to have a chat with you to talk about the projects that we do and to hopefully work with you.
Thank you. I'll send you an email after this on the chat. But I just wanted to thank you both, because I think this is a really great space to share what's going on. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Clarissa. Really, thank you. It's interesting what you just said as well, Alalea, because what one of the things which I think is really important, and there's a book called "Why Do All the Black People Sit Together in the Cafeteria?" And I could rephrase that. Why do all the women accumulate in one area? Right? Why? Because that space, that especially when you're underrepresented, right? And as women in engineering, underrepresentation means that your voice often isn't heard, or people will take your voice or take your ideas and repackage it for themselves and make it as though it was their idea, even, and not give you the credit. Okay. I could ask, have you experienced that? Other people trying to commandeer your ideas? And what have you done? And you've said about the fact that you're bringing women together. How has that environment been then for you, compared to when you were a PhD student by yourself, as it were, compared to now working in a network of women in engineering? How has that felt different for you?
Yeah, I have had the experience of exactly what you said. So many individuals wanting to take your idea and call it their own. I was to some extent more alone than now, because at that time we didn't have a lot of women in terms of whether they're PhD students, researchers, or even academics within the department. And it felt like it was a natural thing for them to, you're a woman, you're not going to be able to take this forward. It sounds like a good idea. I'm going to take it and take it forward. And they don't even acknowledge that it's your idea. And that is the challenge. There has been so many meetings that I was previously involved in that I talk about an idea and it's immediately gets shot down, that no, this is crazy. I mean, even when I first came up with this idea of this new technology, it was immediately shot down. No, it just doesn't, I don't think it's going to be viable or feasible. So it has happened a lot in my career. And I tried to, as I said, I mean, initially it affects you, especially being a young female academic or researcher, it does affect you at the start. But trying to kind of continue by not letting it affect you too much, and say that, okay, in your mind, you have come up with that idea, you have done the research to take it forward, and kind of trying to do the work and let your work show for itself, rather than constantly being in that dialogue with them. But there are times that you have to be in that dialogue with them. You have to kind of tell them, especially as time goes on and I see some of that behavior being directed at my students, as I said earlier, it's very difficult for me to tolerate that. There's one thing for them. It's when I try and speak up and trying to make that change, particularly for the people, for the young individuals that are working with me. Because as I said, I really want to try and make engineering and civil engineering a better place for women. And it has its challenges, but I'm hoping that over time we would be able together to overcome that. And now it's a bit easier in the sense of, as you said, you have that support network. I have the people that I work with. There are a number of individuals within the college that are incredibly supportive and nice. You kind of have them as your mentors in terms of how to navigate through difficult situations. So now things are slowly starting to get better, but there are still, throughout my career, and I'm sure as I go on, I'm going to come across these type of individuals. And the key, I would say, is to be resilient, to try and prevent letting that noise affect you, and just continue and let your work show for itself.
Fantastic. So I'm just wary of time, so I'm gonna ask us my final two questions, and those two questions are, what advice would you have given to your younger self? That's the first part, and then the second part is, what do you think your younger self would look at you now and say, "Wow"?
The advice that I would give to my younger self would be to be kind to myself, and to be nicer to myself. So I am incredibly nice to other people, and I try and be incredibly supportive and encouraging. But when it comes to myself, I have this habit of always thinking is not enough. And it could be because of the society that I was into. I mean, I was surrounded by, it could be this whole sense of constantly having to prove yourself as a woman in engineering. But I always, even when I achieve something, I always think, okay, it's not time for you to stop now. You need to continue. You need to do this. You need to do that. So I suppose that would be the advice that I give to my younger self. Like, be happy with what you have achieved, believe in yourself, be kind to yourself. In terms of my younger self looking and kind of saying, wow, I suppose it would be achieving to some extent, of course, I haven't fully achieved it, but to what I kind of was passionate about, which is doing research that is solving a real world problem and is having a positive impact on the society and the environment, having a research team that I lead, the Brazilian Sustainable Infrastructure Research team that I lead now. I mean, that's something that makes me really happy, having secured funding and also getting some sort of recognition through awards. That is something that at least I can say that despite the challenges, I was able to contribute to some extent, even if it's little, to this field.
That's brilliant. Thank you. I'm hearing here that you're telling your younger self, celebrate those little wins. Yeah,
yes.
celebrate those little wins, because you know those little wins keep you going. If you have to still be very resilient, those little wins where you can say, I made it through, it will keep you going for the next one. Yeah. So no, I love that. I really do love that. And I just want to say a really big thank you again for being our guest this afternoon, because you've really opened up the field of civil engineering and the importance of concrete. I'm not a concrete man, right? Not. I'll be honest. When I used to work on the building site with my dad, sometimes, and we used to have concrete being poured, and we used to call it concrete fever, because it was kind of like you got to get it in quickly and you got to get it grounded down, and otherwise it's going to set, and everyone's all in a huff and a puff and all, you know. So the fact that you've the fact that that's kind of like the environment that for me it was high pressure, right? But the fact that you like that environment and you're actually making a difference in that environment, all power to you. That's what I'm saying. And, right?
Thank you
Really
very
well
much.
done.
And thank you for providing this fantastic platform for us to get our voices heard and hopefully to give some advice to, in my case at least, to other women that are in this field, and think, because sometimes we think to ourselves, are we the problem? And that is the worst thing that we should think about. There has been times in my life where you get so much challenges coming your way that you think perhaps maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm doing something wrong. But for you providing this platform for us to be able to get our voice heard, I really appreciate it. And thank you very much for having this fantastic program to get everyone from every background to get their voices heard.
Thank you very much. I'm going to just share what's happening next week. And next week, actually, I'm going to try and put the two of you in contact. So the lady who I'm going to be speaking with next week, she's a mechanical engineer, right? But she also likes to talk about women in engineering. It's Sheni Samara, and she is a British mechanical engineer, media broadcaster, producer, and author. And she's going to be our guest next week. It's going to be at a slightly earlier time at 11 o'clock. It's the only time I could get her, right? She's very busy. So if you can tune in and listen in, I think you're going to have a really exciting experience with her. And if you have missed any of the other episodes which we've done, please go to our YouTube channel, which is tinyurl.com/belonging-IAO. And you can hear many more conversations about people's sense of identity and belonging. And just to kind of like finish off, with all these wonderful people, right? This program wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for the fact that so many people have shared their stories, very different stories, very similar stories, lots of lessons that we can learn from them. We're almost at 100, we've done over 150, almost 160 or 70, right? And that's a lot of power that we can gain from that. So as we go into that, our bank holiday weekend, All right. I just want to say to everyone, find that place where you can gain your sense of identity and belonging and spend a little more time there this weekend. So until next week, really have a really good weekend, and I will see you in a week's next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.